I used to believe that love, true love, was unbreakable. That if two people truly care about each other, then no storm can tear them apart. I had proof of this, my wife, Emily, and I had built something strong. Stronger than the couples around us, at least I thought so. One by one, my friends' marriages were falling apart. Jake's wife left him for a colleague. Mike found out that his wife had a second phone, a secret life he didn't even know he had. Even my brother Tom, a man who swore that he and his wife were soulmates, ended up signing divorce papers before their 10th anniversary. Every time another marriage fell apart, Emily and I shook our heads, vowing that we were different. We talked about everything. We trusted each other completely. "You know we could never be like that, right?" Emily would say, resting her head on my shoulder. "We love each other too much." And I believed her. Then came that night, the night she went to her friend's party. It wasn't unusual for her to go out with friends, and I never wanted to be the husband who controlled where his wife went. So when she told me about the party, I just smiled. "Have fun," I said. "I'll see you when you get back." She kissed me before she left, as she always does. But something was wrong. I just didn't know it yet. That night, I stayed home, watching a game on TV with a beer in hand. It was just another evening, nothing out of the ordinary. Emily had been excited about the party. Her friend Claire was hosting, and they hadn't seen each other in a while. "Just a girls' night," she had said, slipping into a black dress that hugged her body in all the right ways. I had no reason to worry. She didn't text me much while she was out, but that wasn't strange. She'd check in when she could, I figured. Midnight rolled around, then 1 in the morning. I sent her a quick text, "Having fun?" No response. By 2, I was starting to get annoyed. Not because I thought she was doing anything wrong, but because she usually kept me in the loop. At the very least, she'd let me know when she was coming home. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was just caught up in conversation. When I finally heard the door open at nearly 3, I expected her to be tipsy, smiling, full of stories from the night. Instead, she was quiet. Her makeup was slightly smudged, her dress a little wrinkled. She looked off. "Hey," I said, sitting up from the couch. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "I'm just tired. It was a long night." Then she walked past me, straight to the bathroom. And for the first time in our marriage, something deep inside me whispered that something wasn't right. That night, I stayed home, watching a game on TV with a beer in hand. It was just another evening, nothing out of the ordinary. Emily had been excited about the party. Her friend Claire was hosting, and they hadn't seen each other in a while. "Just a girls' night," she had said, slipping into a black dress that hugged her body in all the right ways. I had no reason to worry. She didn't text me much while she was out, but that wasn't strange. She'd check in when she could, I figured. Midnight rolled around, then 1 in the morning. I sent her a quick text, "Having fun?" No response. By 2, I was starting to get annoyed. Not because I thought she was doing anything wrong, but because she usually kept me in the loop. At the very least, she'd let me know when she was coming home. I called her, but it went straight to voicemail. Maybe her phone had died. Maybe she was just caught up in conversation. When I finally heard the door open at nearly 3, I expected her to be tipsy, smiling, full of stories from the night. Instead, she was quiet. Her makeup was slightly smudged, her dress a little wrinkled. She looked off. "Hey," I said, sitting up from the couch. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," she replied quickly. Too quickly. "I'm just tired. It was a long night." Then she walked past me, straight to the bathroom. And for the first time in our marriage, something deep inside me whispered that something wasn't right. I sat there for a while, staring at the bathroom door, listening to the sound of the sink running. Something about the way she had rushed past me, avoiding my eyes, sent a strange feeling crawling up my spine. She had been to plenty of girls' nights before, but she always came back talkative, happy, sometimes tipsy and giggling as she kicked off her heels. This time, There was no laughter, no playful teasing, no stories about Claire's latest drama. Just silence. When she finally came out, she barely looked at me. "I'm exhausted," she muttered. "I just want to sleep." I nodded, watching as she slipped into bed and turned away from me. No goodnight kiss. No warm body curling up against mine. Just distance. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept replaying the way she had acted, the slight hesitation in her voice. I wanted to shake it off, convince myself I was overthinking, but something in my gut told me otherwise. The next morning, Emily was back to normal. Or at least, she tried to be. She kissed me on the cheek, made coffee like she always did, and even laughed at one of my dumb jokes. But I noticed the little things. The way she avoided my eyes for too long, the way she hesitated before answering simple questions. I wanted to believe it was nothing. That she was just tired, that I was letting my friends' failed marriages mess with my head. But deep down I knew. Something had changed. And I couldn't shake the feeling that our perfect marriage wasn't so perfect anymore. Over the next few days, I tried to push the feeling away. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was looking for something that wasn't there. But the signs kept piling up. Emily was on her phone more than usual, always tilting the screen away from me when I walked by. When I asked her about the party, her answers felt rehearsed, like she was making sure not to slip up. "Nothing crazy," she had said with a shrug. "Just a lot of talking and drinking. Claire got a little too drunk, as usual. That was it. No funny stories, no details, no complaints about the music being too loud or someone embarrassing themselves. Just a vague, distant summary. And then there was the way she started pulling away. She stopped initiating affection like she used to. When I kissed her, she kissed me back, but it felt different. Like she was doing it out of habit, not because she wanted to. I told myself to stop being ridiculous. We had been together for years. Maybe this was just a phase. Maybe work was stressing her out. Maybe she was dealing with something personal that she wasn't ready to talk about. But then, late one night, I woke up to find her missing from our bed. I got up quietly and walked down the hall, stopping when I heard her voice. She was in the living room, speaking softly into the phone. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. "I can't talk right now." "No, he's asleep." I felt my stomach drop. She wasn't talking to Claire. And I wasn't supposed to hear. I stood there in the dark hallway, my pulse pounding in my ears. Every instinct told me to step forward, to let her know I was there, to demand answers. But something stopped me. I wasn't ready. Instead, I backed away, returning to bed, staring at the ceiling as my mind raced. I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation, but deep down, I knew better. That whisper of doubt I had felt the night of the party had turned into something real. When Emily finally came back to bed, I pretended to be asleep. She moved carefully, like she didn't want to wake me. But I could feel it, her hesitation, the weight of a secret pressing down on her. The next day, I watched her more closely. She was distracted, lost in her own world. I tested her, bringing up small details from the party, seeing if her story would change. It did. She had told me Claire got too drunk, but now she said Claire left early. When I mentioned the music, she hesitated before agreeing it was loud, something she hadn't mentioned before. I felt sick. I needed to know the truth. That night, after she fell asleep, I reached for her phone. I had never done anything like this before. I had never needed to. But now, my hand shook as I unlocked it. She had a password. She had never used one before. My stomach clenched. Whatever she was hiding, she didn't want me to find it. I sat there in the dim light of our bedroom, staring at her locked phone. My mind raced, my chest tightening with the weight of what this meant. Emily had always been open, no passwords, no secrets. Until now. I put the phone back and lay down, but sleep never came. My thoughts spun in circles, each one worse than the last. Was it just emotional? Or had she crossed the line I never thought she would? The next morning, I decided to play it cool. If I confronted her now without proof, she'd deny everything. I needed to be smart. "Hey," I said casually as she sipped her coffee. "I tried using your phone last night to look something up, but it was locked. When did you start using a password?" For the briefest second, her fingers stiffened around her mug. Just a flicker of panic before she forced a smile. "Oh, yeah? I set it up last week. Just, for security." She was lying. I saw it in her eyes. I nodded, acting like it didn't matter. But I had already made up my mind. If she was hiding something, I was going to find out. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. Then I took her phone again. I watched her closely, making sure she was deep in sleep before I carefully pressed her thumb to the sensor. It unlocked. My heart pounded as I scrolled through her messages. Most of them were normal, texts with friends, work stuff. But then I saw a conversation with a name I didn't recognize. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My blood ran cold that I stared at the message, my hands tightening around the phone. My breath felt heavy, slow, like I had been punched in the gut. There it was. Proof. Not just a feeling, not just suspicion, proof. I scrolled up, my pulse hammering in my ears. The messages were brief, but they said enough. "I don't know what to do. We have to be careful. I miss you already." And then, the one that shattered me completely. "That night with you was the best I've felt in years." I felt my chest tighten, my fingers gripping the phone so hard I thought it might crack. The party. That was the night it started. I turned to look at Emily, sleeping peacefully beside me. The woman who promised we were different. Who told me we would never be like the others. I wanted to wake her up. To shake her, to demand answers. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I took a deep breath, put the phone back exactly as I had found it, and rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. I needed to think. I needed a plan. If she had lied to me about this, how many more lies had there been? How long had I been a fool, believing we were unbreakable while she was sneaking around behind my back? Sleep never came that night. Only the crushing weight of betrayal. Morning came, but I felt like I hadn't slept in days. My body was heavy, my mind clouded with everything I had seen the night before. Emily woke up beside me, stretching and yawning like it was just another day. Like she hadn't completely shattered the world we built. I forced myself to act normal. If I confronted her now, she'd deny it. Twist it. Maybe even turn it around on me. I needed more. I needed to be sure. So I waited. I started paying closer attention, watching her when she thought I wasn't looking, noticing every time she glanced at her phone with that little smirk. The way she started dressing a little nicer when she went out with friends. Then, one night, I got my chance. Emily was in the shower when her phone lit up on the nightstand. My heart pounded as I grabbed it. The same name. The same sinking feeling. "I can't wait to see you again." I clenched my jaw, my hands trembling. My mind screamed at me to throw the phone, to break something, to yell at her the second she stepped out of the bathroom. But I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath, opened the message, and snapped a picture of the screen with my own phone. If she wanted to lie, I was going to have the truth staring her in the face. By the time she walked out, wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. "Everything okay?" she asked, rubbing her hair dry. I looked up at her, forcing myself to stay calm. "Yeah," I said. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't. And soon, she was going to know just how much I knew. The next day, I could barely look at her without feeling sick. Every time she smiled at me, every time she kissed my cheek, I wanted to scream. How long had she been lying to my face? How many times had she come home from his arms and acted like nothing had happened? I needed to be smart. I needed to be patient. So I waited. That evening, she told me she was meeting Claire for dinner. I nodded, pretending to believe her, but I already knew the truth. She wasn't meeting Claire. She was meeting him. As soon as she left, I grabbed my keys and followed. It wasn't hard. She wasn't expecting me to check. She drove across town to a small restaurant, one we had never been to together. And there he was, sitting at a dimly lit table in the corner, waiting for my wife. I watched from my car as she walked inside, saw the way her face lit up when she saw him. That look, one she used to save for me, was now his. Something inside me snapped. I could have stormed in, made a scene. But that wasn't enough. I wanted her to know she had been caught. So I pulled out my phone, took a picture of them together, and drove home. I sat in the dark, waiting. When she finally came back, she looked me in the eyes and lied again. "Dinner was nice," she said casually. "Claire's thinking about taking a trip soon." I pulled out my phone, opened the picture, and turned the screen toward her. She froze. Her face went pale. I didn't have to say a word. She knew. She was caught. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Emily's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but no words came. Her face twisted, shock, guilt, maybe even fear. I let it sit. Let her feel it. The weight of her betrayal. Finally, she whispered, "I can explain." I almost laughed. Explain? What was there to explain? I had the messages. I had the picture. I had every sleepless night, every gut-wrenching doubt she had forced me to endure. "Go ahead," I said, my voice calm. Too calm. "Explain." She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her eyes darted to the door like she wanted to run. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she finally choked out. "It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I scoffed. "How many times, Emily? How many mistakes?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no sadness. Just emptiness. "I love you," she whispered. "I swear I never stopped." I shook my head, exhaling a slow breath. "You don't do this to someone you love." For the first time in our marriage, I saw her for what she really was. A liar. A coward. Someone who was willing to throw away everything we had for a mistake. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't ask why. I just stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out the door. Now I sit here by the river, watching the water move, thinking about life. About how easily something I thought was unbreakable had shattered. I don't know what comes next. But I do know one thing. I'll never be that blind again.